These days, I'm focusing a lot on mastering my Dominican accent at home. And maybe you're asking to yourself, why am I trying to do all this at home? Well, that's because right now I live in the United States and not the Dominican Republic, and I don't really have any plans of moving there anytime soon. Neither do I know when I will actually travel back there. So most of this hard work has to be done at my home. I'm trying to keep this process of mastering my Dominican accent as simple as possible. So right now, my main plan is just to consume a lot of content from the Dominican Republic, take some notes, learn some new words and phrases, and then as well do a lot of speaking practice. Now, as far as what it means to me when it comes to mastering my Dominican accent, I really see that as me being able to speak Spanish with a Dominican accent without that many issues. So it's very simple to do. It is very easy to do. My accent doesn't sound broken, and if someone would hear me speak Spanish, then they would think that I was from the Dominican Republic. So this is a very, very big goal and quite challenging, but I just really love this whole process of developing a new accent. It's like learning Spanish all over again, especially since the Spanish in the Dominican Republic is very unique and distinct from other Spanish-speaking countries. So there is quite a very big learning curve. So that's why part of this plan is being or consuming a lot of content from the Dominican Republic. So right now I listen to a lot of music. So I listen to a lot of bachata and merengue. And then I also listen to a lot of podcasts from the Dominican Republic. And then I also watch a lot of YouTube channels as well that were created by Dominicans. And I need as much exposure to Dominican Spanish because, again, I'm not living there. So I really need to consume a lot. And then as well, so I can get adapted to how it sounds. Because for me, it's still pretty challenging to understand a lot of Dominicans. So basically, the more that I listen to Dominican content and the more that I learn Dominican words and phrases, the easier that it's going to be for me to understand Dominicans. If I want to master my Dominican accent, I really need to focus on these goals when I'm consuming all this content from the Dominican Republic. And that is because it can be really easy for me to just listen to all this content passively and not listen very intently, because as well what I'm trying to do is answer a question, and that specific question is, how do Dominicans sound? To answer this question, I ask myself questions like, okay, well, how did they say that word? How did they pronounce that word? Or how did they say and pronounce that phrase? What was the tone of their voice when they said it? How fast were they saying these words and phrases or that sentence? So I'm really focusing on these really specific aspects of speech. And doing all this analysis has helped me out so much, and to the point where now I can really start to distinguish between different Dominican accents. And a few years ago, I didn't really know that there were different accents. I kind of just assumed that most Dominicans sounded all the same, especially because, Dominican Republic is just, one part of an island. So I'm like, okay, since it's so small, I guess there aren't many different accents, but there are different accents. So that's definitely something that I'm picking up a lot more right now. And it's honestly makes me feel very proud that I'm able to really distinguish these different tones. One tone, I say tone, but I guess accent, that I'm starting to hear a lot more now in different Dominican videos that I've been watching on YouTube. It sounds like this. Ya tú sabes, maní, estamos activos de allá 24/7. All right, that is the best that I can do. I'm not going to use my Dominican accent too much in this video because me da un poco de vergüenza. So I get a little embarrassed when I'm trying to imitate the accent, which I'll talk a little bit later. But if you want to hear how I sound when I speak Spanish with a Dominican accent, you can watch one of my most recent live streams in Spanish where I was primarily speaking in Spanish, and I'll link that down below. But anyway, so I've been hearing this type of accent and tone, and even for me to imitate that kind of tone, it was really difficult for me. But it is very fascinating because I've heard accents that are that high, but then I've heard accents that have more of a lower tone. So it's very interesting. I've been learning a lot. Then of course, I've already learned that they cut the S's, or they don't use a lot of S's. and also Z's. So for instance, instead of saying supiste, you may hear supite. And then instead of saying arroz, you may hear aro. And ma instead of mas. And pa allá instead of para allá. And pa acá instead of para acá. And things like that. So I really love Dominican Spanish for these qualities that it has. Now, what we're looking at right here is my little Dominican vocabulary tracker or word list or vocabulary list, whatever you would like to call it. So I am putting some words and phrases in here so I can remember them and so I can include them into the way that I speak, or to include them into my vocabulary. So basically, I like to call it, I am trying to develop my Dominican Spanish fluency. In this column, I have the word or the phrase that I heard, and then also have this donde column. And this is just because I want to remember where exactly I heard it. I want to also know what type of word it is or what type of phrase that it is. So for example, I have adjective or adjetivo acá, and that's because the phrase is esta mujer está heavy. Heavy is an adjective that I hear Dominicans use a lot to describe someone, and honestly, I don't really know how to use it properly, or I don't really know all the different meanings of it, but I do kind of know how to use it in a sentence, but I don't really know all the different meanings. So that's why I have significado, this column right here, so I can put in, the different meanings of this particular phrase or word. And then, for example, if I hear this over and over again, I can put in some different sentences where I hear it in, and then some extra examples as well. Pero ven acá, and then this is really important as well. This tipo or type column is very important because I really want to know when are Dominicans saying these different words and phrases. So for example, I hear pero ven acá a lot, like at the beginning of sentences and also at the end of sentences. If you want to create and use your own vocabulary tracker like the one that I just showed, then you can get the free template that I have on my website that is for the Notion platform. I'll leave a link to this free template down below in the description box. As well, if you didn't know, I have 2 free PDFs, my Spanish Conversation Blueprint and my Spanish Vocabulary Blueprint that you can download right now, along with my Spanish Resource Kit that has over 60 different resources for learning Spanish and improving your Spanish, like TV shows, podcasts, YouTube channels, and songs. Now, if I really want to master the Dominican accent, I can't just learn vocabulary right, and I can't just listen to Dominican content, but I have to practice speaking a lot and trying to speak with the Dominican accent. Now, this can be very, very challenging. Well, actually, it has been extremely challenging to do so because, well, number one, again, I'm not living in the Dominican Republic, and then 2 of my friends who are Dominican, I don't really see them that often, and we don't always talk because of our busy schedule. So that kind of sucks that I'm not able to have that frequent conversation in Dominican Spanish with them. And then on the other hand, I don't plan on, and I haven't really been using ITALKI to practice speaking Dominican Spanish either. And that's because I don't want to invest a lot of money into that or time, because my time is already fairly limited. If I were to try to put a lot of time into ITALKI, I know I would just be very exhausted while I was in my lessons. And I don't really want to make that mistake again, because when I'm exhausted, I don't really learn that much. All that to say, I have to do a lot of shadowing and then also just speaking Spanish to myself. So normally when I'm speaking Spanish to myself throughout the day now, I'm trying to use my Dominican accent right, but I'm also trying to include all these words and phrases that I have been learning and really try to copy exactly how Dominicans say these words and phrases. So this is what I like to call the copycat method. So whatever I hear in these TV shows, right? Well, I guess not TV shows, but YouTube channels and songs, and then also podcasts, I just try to copy exactly how they say it. And then just wash, rinse, and repeat. And I would say that My accent has gotten a lot thicker. It has been getting more developed over the past few years now, just by doing or just by following this simple plan here. So I'm pretty proud of that. I will say there still are some challenges, and most of them just have to do with my insecurity because, kind of like I said earlier, I get kind of embarrassed if I am using my Dominican accent because, again, I'm in the process of developing it. So it still, to me, feels very strange when I'm using it, or if I'm speaking to someone with a Dominican accent. I just feel very strange. I don't know how I sound to other people. I don't know if I sound like I'm trying to force an accent or if it sounds very broken, So my insecurities at times can definitely slow my progress because when I get to that very insecure state, then I don't really want to speak. I don't really want to use a Dominican accent just because I feel so strange, right? That is something I'm definitely trying to work on still. I've been working actually on trying to overcome these insecurities when it comes to using my Dominican accents since 2021. So it has been a very long road. I just need to be very confident when I am speaking with my Dominican accent and not let all those insecurities get to me. Especially because I talk about this all the time on my YouTube channel here, right? I always talk about, overcoming these insecurities and always speaking Spanish. So I need to take my own advice, and I also need to really just trust in the process and trust that my plan is going to work because it has been working. And then as well, not getting into that mentality like, oh, this plan is not going to work because I don't live in the Dominican Republic. I don't have a lot of Dominicans where I live, so my accent can only get so far. It's not going to be able to get developed. I've had many of those thoughts, especially because I didn't really know that really was possible to develop an accent at home and not have to live in that specific Spanish-speaking country. Let me know in the comment section below if you are developing your Dominican accent. As well, leave a comment if you have any tips for me for how I can develop and master my Dominican accent. Now watch this next video. Hasta luego.